All right, welcome back, fellow TFFL owners. Another TFFL webcast here. It is Wednesday, November 2nd. Believe it or not, we're looking ahead to Week 9 TFFL action this week. Folks, I'm ready to go tonight. We got I started looking at the records. The South is a mess. All 6 teams within a game of first place. No teams above 500. And then you look at the North, and it's equally a mess, and maybe a little more exciting in that 5 teams are 5-3 or better. 2 of those teams could very well miss the playoffs by the time we're done. Hank will take us through the standings in just a second. Let me start by introducing ourselves. I'm Stick, managing editor of TFFL Media, joined as always by our trio of regular guests, starting with our commissioner, Skipper of the Sponge Fishermen, Chief.
Good evening, TFFL.
Hank, czar and CEO of the K-Wheels.
Good evening, League. Happy to be here.
Tied with the Aliens atop the league standings at 6-2. And Berto, fresh off a fish weekend.
Happy Halloween.
Fresh off of Halloween. Welcome.
Groovy, dude.
And our special guest from, are you still in Red Bank, Terry?
I am in Old Bridge, New Jersey these days, as of 2 months ago.
All right. Owner of the Steel City Mongols, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Congratulations on your cohabitation.
Thank you.
Do we get to throw you a bachelor party for this?
Sure.
Yes, yes, we do. Yes.
Counts.
The answer to bachelor party is always yes.
Yes, it is.
Good.
All right. Well, we're I think now heading down the stretch. 5 weeks to go. We've got a lot to talk about as always. But as always, we're going to start first with our fun TFFL trivia question. Hank is keeping score. Terry, you're representing the guests.
All right.
Accumulating points for what they're worth. And so, I wanted to make sure I incorporated the Mongols into the trivia question, but I thought it'd be a little too easy to make you the answer once again. So this question is about the Mongols, but the Mongols are not going to be the answer. And we got a 2-parter for you, so lots of chances to make up ground here with some extra points. I remember one of the first few drafts we had, Terry. You and Badass were sitting next to me, and toward the end of the draft, you're sort of debating about a few players, and then you confidently both agree on one. And Badass goes up to select the pick, and you look at him and you say, "Gamble on greatness." And I always remember that. And so we're going to talk about your 2003 draft, where you had some great gambles on greatness. That's the Anquan Bolden draft. Nobody had heard of him. 10th rounder.
The Salem, Massachusetts draft.
Salem, Massachusetts. And so in that draft, I think you started out with the first overall pick and traded down to the number 5 spot, because that was the year Willis McGahee was the clear-cut, really the only stud running back coming out. And yet he had that devastating knee injury, and you knew he was going to miss the first season of his career. So here's my 2-part question. First, name the player who went number 1 overall in that draft instead of Willis McGahee, who again dropped to number 5 for Terry. Well played. Got the number 1 overall running back, but traded back to do it. So who was that number 1 overall pick that went to, I'll give you a clue, to the Slippery Beavers, who had traded up into that spot? And between number 1 and number 5, 3 other young running backs went. I'll give you a point for every one of them you can name.
Oh, boy.
All right, so you're saying who went number 1 overall, and then how many running backs?
3 more running backs.
So 3 more running backs before McGahee.
So we get a point for each.
Well, I can seriously rack up some points here.
And those paying attention just got an extra clue that I didn't mean to give, but I won't pay attention. All right. We'll come back to that. You mull that for a moment. But that was a great draft for the Mongols. Willis McGahee, again, trading back to get that stud running back who was very good for them for several years. And Anquan Bolden in the 10th round.
Did Terry end up drafting Charles Rogers in this draft?
No.
Harry did not.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we got a new segment tonight because the TFFL webcast gets a lot of mail. So I thought to respect our viewers and clear up any questions they might have about the show, I thought I'd just read something at random. So hold on one second. Let's just pull one out here. All right. This one's from Rich Berkman from the Lizards. He says, "Great webcast, fellas. As for Jay Ajayi, yeah, he was in the doghouse. Foster was the darling, and I tried to trade him. No takers. I'm pretty happy with Olsen's production regardless. Hindsight is 20/20, and 2 games doesn't make Ajayi the next AP, but congrats on grabbing him. I didn't have the shot to do so." And then Rich goes on to say, "For the guests, honestly, I got both trivia questions right. I'll leave it to you if you want to count that for points for the guests." I'm sorry, Rich. We just can't verify you got them right, and we take these points very seriously. Berto just got ahead of the guests. We're not about to go giving away points that
That's right.
put him back in last place. So, nonetheless, we really appreciate your feedback, Rich, and for getting on the show today. We're going to reach into the TFFL treasure chest and pull out a little gift that we'll have our shipping department send right off to you.
This webcast is amazing. We have a shipping department.
Can you guys see this? That's a autographed Paul Perkins rookie card.
Nice.
For the Lizards. Nice pull out of the treasure chest tonight.
Very good.
Thanks for writing in, Rich.
I like the mailbag and the treasure chest. Nice.
I like this segment.
This is great. Keep going.
All right. Well, it's now off to you, Hank. We're going to take a quick look at our standings after 8 weeks of action. Tee us up a little bit here before we get into our roundtable discussion.
Well, you kind of stole the headline off the top of the lead because we're talking about the tale of 2 conferences, which are both incredibly competitive, and we're now entering the last 5 weeks of the season where we're all going to play each other interconference and see who's going to thrive and not. So here's the North. The K-Wheels and the Aliens have got the division leads, 6-2, and a 1-game lead. But there are 3 other teams right there at 5-3, relevant and all games against each other. The AMPAC have a chance to be a spoiler. Everybody's counting on being able to beat the AMPAC over the next 5 weeks. I'm guessing somebody's not gonna. You think the AMPAC are gonna go 0-13, really? So let's see who it is. And God, I hope it's not me. Anyway, in the South, we have a similar story, just a little different record-wise. 3-4-4 teams and 3-3-5 teams. Everybody within a game. Again, all playing each other. Who's playing well? Mongols, you're right there, man. You got games against all these guys, and there you go. As I said earlier, the Sponge, have been playing great, and it seems like they're a team that's much better than their record. So we'll see what happens. There you go.
Hank, I'm taking a look. I want to see what the division standings are like. So the Hams not only have the 1-game lead over their 2 division opponents, they also have a 2-0 division record.
Right. They got the half game, so they have 2.5.
They're by no means way out ahead, but they've got a good advantage at this point. In Terry's division, everybody there is 1-1. So
everybody's split.
Yeah. So I had two big keys. Yeah, the head-to-heads down the stretch. The 6-2 teams, the 5-3 teams, could miss the playoffs, losing to the wrong teams. The South is going to clear itself up with all these head-to-head games. Yeah, and somebody's going to lose to the AMPAC at some point, and that's going to really shift momentum for somebody. Okay, let's get into our roundtable discussion. I want to make sure we give Terry some good time here tonight. So let's start by talking about the Mongols a little bit.
Sure.
Terry, you said you watched the webcast at least half the time.
That is true.
Do you have a favorite segment, a complaint, or a suggestion?
No, I don't. sometimes I get a kick out of the Mongols always being the answer to the trivia question. So if I had a favorite, even though they're usually in a negative fashion, that would be it.
Okay.
I enjoy that because Mongols.
All right, and as we talked about in the pregame show, I don't think we've had you on since the Chris Johnson trade.
That is true.
In fairness, we've talked about it a little bit on the webcast. I want to give you a chance to maybe explain the thinking there. The Mongols obviously ended up with a good result last year. They won the conference. I think went 8-5.
No help from Johnson.
Nonetheless, it certainly didn't hurt you last year. But you didn't have a first rounder this year. You don't have a first rounder again in 2017. You did get some other picks back from the MPAC, but Chris Johnson wasn't even a keeper this year.
No.
It's easy to look back and say all that, but tell us what your thinking was at the time.
Well, I was fully aware that he wasn't a keeper, and I probably wouldn't have admitted this the week after the trade, but with some time and distance from it, it had been so long since Bob and I had a chance to win the conference, get deep in the playoffs. We wanted to stock up on running backs, improve our depth. And at that time, Chris Johnson was having a very good year, slowing down a bit. And we all knew he was 30. So the 2017, which at that time seemed so far off, first round pick didn't bother me that much. And then when the second first round pick was brought up, Bob and I's thinking was it's going to be 3 picks different. Let's not quibble over 3 picks, and let's try to better our team. And it flamed out spectacularly, but that was the thinking at the time. So,
all right,
I'm still paying.
Let's talk about another Mongols player, guy when you first kept him. Blake Bortles was widely criticized. Quickly turned into a great keeper decision, and obviously helped you to that conference crown last year.
Right.
Now he looks terrible again.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, nobody really expected him to break out last year. Did you guys see something everybody didn't? Did you just not have better options?
Well,
where do you stand with Bortles now?
We had a couple of better options, but the guy was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. He had the starting job. The Mongols have struggled with the quarterback position basically for 20 years. And so we took a flyer on a guy we thought had potential. Out great. Garbage time Bortles was beautiful last year. Did I expect some regression this year, like most of the pundits were, saying was going to happen? Yeah. Did I think he would look like, an Erie Strong Vincent High School quarterback last week? Fully should have been benched. So, yeah, I'm concerned. I hope he turns it around. But in mid-season, when you're flying in a quarterback's coach to work on mechanics, that's never a good sign.
For you or your current quarterback coach?
Both. I'm more concerned about the Mongols, so I hope he's got a hell of a coach working on his mechanics with him.
As the guy who owns Allen Robinson, I concur.
Yes. But that the first half of that Thursday night game last week was putrid. He looked like he had never played the position.
There's a few. Brock Osweiler has looked that bad at times this year. There are several quarterbacks in that category. The other thing we've talked about a lot with the Mongols on this webcast is your 2 Falcon running backs. A lot of investment in that position, paid off to some degree. I mean, how much longer do you want to keep doing this? Holding on to these guys, keeping them, having to decide who to start week in and week out.
Ideally, I will do it for maybe the rest of this season. I'm not ruling out trading one of those running backs, But long term, it's not something I want to juggle with every week. It's already been frustrating. I've had some seller's remorse on a few offers that over the last year that I didn't accept. So yeah, I don't want to do that much longer.
Well, Tevin Coleman's been hurt though, so I mean, he's going to be out again this week, right?
Again,
Not last week.
He's got those sprinters hamstrings. But if he can get healthy and have a good end of the season, he'd be a viable trade candidate as well as Freeman for the right deal.
Berto has been a champion of the strategy, and it has been productive for you. It guarantees you one stud running back. They were sharing a little more earlier this year.
They have shared the backfield better than most in a timeshare. They've both been able to get their points. They weren't always both in my lineup when they were doing that, but they have been able to share that backfield. And yes, so. But I don't love the situation.
I mean, if you look across the landscape of who's starting in some TFL lineups right now, it's not too bad, right? There's a lot of garbage starting at running back across TFL lineups. So
I started a couple of those guys last week. Niall Davis was in my starting lineup last week. So.
Yeah. All right. Last question for the Mongols, and I'll start it off with Terry, and then while he's answering, maybe everybody else can do quick research and be ready with your answer. Down the stretch, where do you see the Mongols going, Terry? What's your final record? How confident are you in making the playoffs?
Well, I'm thankful to be in the SoCo East or South or whatever I'm in right now. Still in it. I think I can beat both the Devils and Beavers head to head, but basically it's going to come down to Blake Bortles. Can he be passable? Can he get me 15 every week? And then getting something out of my receivers. Before he got hurt, Randall Cobb had 3 good games in a row, 100-yard game, 2 games with the touchdown. Jamison Crowder's been a godsend. Des Bryant looks like, he'll be back and scoring. I've basically had nothing out of Des Bryant for a year and a half. If he can become a monster down the stretch, I think 6 and 7 is well within reach. 7 and 6 might be a stretch, but 6 and 7 might get it done in my division. So, by all means, I'm looking forward to the stretch run here. But a lot of it hinges on Blake Bortles. I think Freeman will score. I can plug in Rashad Jennings, who may get me a week, and my receivers are going to score. But it's Blake Bortles because my alternative at quarterback is Alex Smith, so I don't have a lot of other options. So Blake, it's all on you, bud.
So I think we think the Mongols have to win the division clearly. But you look at Blake Bortles' schedule, and it's not that great. He's got KC. The bye is passed, which is good. He's got KC. He's got Houston, Denver, Minnesota. Now, granted, they're not, Minnesota in particular, not the defense maybe that they were a few weeks ago, but at least, 4 or 5 tough games on the schedule coming up for Bortles, which I think is a problem for Terry and the Mongols.
The Vikings defense is just fine. Thank you very much.
It is a problem. It also, if you want to look at the glass as half full, the Jaguars are going to be playing from behind, and
That's
he's
true.
probably going to put it up 50 times in those games. So he's going to have a lot of chances and a lot of garbage time, hopefully against, sort of loose prevent type defenses, stopping a 3 and 4 touchdown lead.
That's a good point. Garbage time will be your friend. That's true.
It is a thing. I used to laugh at it, but last Thursday when he threw his 3rd touchdown pass with 1 second left on the clock in a meaningless game, I became a believer.
We'll do it.
As I look at the Mongols roster here, I don't think the problem is Blake Bortles as much as the running back spot. I'm just not seeing 3 starters here. And I'm throwing in the tight ends in that group too. Basically, I see 1 starting running back, Atlanta RB. Right now it looks like your starters have to be, Jennings, Devontae Freeman, and maybe not this week, but most weeks, Tevin Coleman.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So Jennings is basically half a running back. The 2 Atlanta guys make a full running back between them. I mean, that's really it. You have to swing a trade or work the waiver wire, some magic here, because now Davis is on his 2nd team since he started for you last week. I don't know where he is now. I don't remember.
Not even on the team at the moment.
I guess, I'll take it back because Chris Thompson or whoever C. Thompson is for the Redskins has been playing very well lately. I don't know if it's Chris or if it's Sean.
Yes.
It is Chris.
But,
Listen, yeah, I'm not throwing out top 10 caliber running backs, and I'm fully aware I'm going to have to piece some things together. But the way I look at it, on paper, maybe the Devils and the Beavers look better, but they're flawed as well.
Sure.
And that's my competition in this division. So, yeah, the Mongols. Stick had mentioned earlier about the hemp maybe being perilously thin. I mean, look at my roster. That's as thin as it gets. But hopefully we get past this week, get most of the buys out of the way.
You got guys getting healthy, Terry.
And I got guys getting healthy. So, I think the arrow's pointing up for the Mongols. I mean, although I'm 3-5, I'm the lowest scoring team in the league. But 2 of the last 3 weeks, I've been in the 60s and in the 70s. So the arrow's pointing up.
Well, I also just looked, and your tough week is week 11, where you've got some bye week issues with the Atlanta running backs. And luckily for you, that is not a division game. Luckily for Chief, that is when they play the Sponge Fishermen.
yeah, nice.
I know one team rooting hard against you is the Ampac. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
They want that pick.
Okay, let's
And because I made that pick, I do want Ralph to go winless. Just because.
Oh, I think
Who doesn't want to see that?
yeah, we all do. Everybody wants to see Ralph winless.
I think it's probably a good bet it's going to happen too.
let me make sure we've got our math right here. 1-20 now in his last 21 games.
Yes.
All right, good.
And last season being 0-13. Yeah, or no. Did you win a game last year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
1-12.
All right.
1-12, 0-8, and counting. All right, so let's shift to a topic not necessarily involving the Mongols. And I asked you guys to do a little research here. Simple exercise. I want you to name 3 players you think are most likely to be traded down the stretch here. And maybe even before we get to players, Chief, can you remind us all the trade deadline is the start of week 11 kickoff on Sunday?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So
1 o'clock on week 11.
So there's starting to be some urgency here. We're basically 2.5 weeks away from that deadline. Who are people going to be making phone calls or emails or texts about?
I just want to throw out something, comment on this. Is as I started looking at it, I realized this quickly. The real problem, as the standings showed and our earlier discussion showed, is there's only one team who's a dumping trading partner. There's only one team that's really ready to trade draft picks for assets, and that's Ralph. And he's not moving Gordon or Elliott. And other than that, there's not a lot there. I'm not sure there's a lot of other teams who are willing to start building for next year yet.
Maybe not, but there certainly will be by the time the deadline rolls around. I actually just looked through. I wrote down actually 6 names. They might not be superstars, all of them, but they're certainly useful. Actually, I'll just we said that Ralph is not going to trade Melvin Gordon or Ezekiel Elliott. Obviously, that's true. Will he trade Ryan Matthews? Possibly.
Absolutely.
He's certainly a useful piece for somebody. If the Mongols fall a little bit further, not only is, say Devontae Freeman available, I think Larry Fitzgerald would have to be available at that point. Would also be a useful piece for a contender. And when the Devils finally fall out, I think Frank Kohler would be a good rental till the end of the year.
The Devils are loaded with guys who I think he'd be willing to trade. Forte, Spencer Ware. The Devils came into this season already looking ahead to 2017. I don't think it may take much more before they'd be willing to say yes to an offer on any of those guys.
Yep. Chief hit on a couple that I had. I also had I had Freeman, or not Freeman, Matthews, Fitz, McKinnon was another one.
Yep. I talked about him last week a little bit.
Yeah. Fleener was another one that I had. And then I think another one, maybe if somebody's looking for a quarterback, pending, injuries or whatever, Andy Dalton could be another one as well from the AMPAC.
I could see Ralph trading John Brown as well.
Yeah, sure.
I think Ralph would trade all but 2 guys on his roster.
And remember, for as little as we hear from Ralph these days, he was very active. The Chris Johnson trade was not the only thing he did last year at the trade deadline. So Ralph has some pieces. They're not necessarily great pieces, but I bet you he's active within the next couple of weeks. Okay, let's talk about one franchise in particular. There were some calls last week to talk a little more about the Aliens, who were 6-1 at the time. You could now make a call to talk about the K-Wheels, who have jumped up to 6-2, tied with the Aliens. But rather than talk about somebody on the panel, I think there's a more intriguing team to talk about, and that's the highest scoring team in the league, the Hormel Hams. They're 4-4. They're kind of an enigma. They're 4-4, highest scoring team in the league. 2 keeper running backs now on IR. A lot of smart moves by Michael, by the head cheese. He traded for Drew Brees. He drafted Jimmy Graham. Recent free agent pickup of wide receiver Devontae Adams. Looking back to last year, picked up David Johnson at number 12 overall. So Michael knows what he's doing. He builds a good team. Yet, as Terry mentioned, as I've told you guys, I think their depth is very thin at this point. Chief, you can say for sure, but I'm kind of guessing the Hams don't have many free agent picks left.
Yes, 2.
Okay. Is this, and we talk about this franchise as if it is a title favorite, but in that crowded Southern Conference at 4-4, they're a game out of last place, basically. Where do the Hams go from here? What do we make of this franchise?
They simply have a running back problem. They're set at quarterback, as you mentioned. Breeze is now the top scoring player in the league. Last year, in addition to drafting, DeAndre, or I forget what you said before, but they also made a big trade for Antonio Brown before last year.
Yep.
So you're right; he's made the great moves. And it's just a running back problem. You mentioned he lost 2 starters to IR, but frankly, they're not the strength of the team that it looked like early in the year. At the draft, C.J. Anderson, Jeremy Langford looked like 2 young, every down studs at running back for their teams, and they're obviously not that. So where does he go from here? He's got to be very active, working in trades, and he usually is, although it typically is the off season and not during the season. Maybe Dion Lewis comes back and is a scorer for the Hams to pair with David Johnson. But I think outside the running back position, I think he's still pretty talented. You know, Terrell Pryor, Andre Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, you know, is a pretty solid wide receiver.
Did he draft Terrell Pryor? Or was
I
that?
believe he did, yes.
Yeah, he drafted him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we talked about it last week. The Hams, you know, Michael being upset, and I even mentioned it to him at the draft about not picking up Booker. And I rubbed that salt in that wound a little bit.
As you should. As you should.
And I know he's kicking himself about that, but you know, he's still got a great lineup. Yeah, that's a big hole in the lineup now, though. Just with the one running back essentially. So I think Michael sees his time is now, and he's going to pull out all the stops to close that gap quickly. He does have Eifert coming back, which was the player he took instead of Booker in that particular round when he was debating between the two. So maybe that gives him some, you know, a bit of a boost. Although he had Graham, and I think Eifert is more inclined to have a better back half of the season. So maybe that gives him a little bit, and he can put him at running back. But yeah, I mean, Chief is right. He's still, you know, the one guy short in an otherwise really, really good lineup with a quarterback that's putting up a lot of points. So
Terrell Pryor is a 9th round draft pick this year.
I was kind of coming at it from the other angle. I look at Anderson, Dunn, Langford not being you know, what we thought he was, and I look at Michael's roster, and you know, granted, you know, little short at running back with Dion Lewis possibly coming back and scoring, Jimmy Graham able to plug in that spot, and we just mentioned he's got 4 to 5 receivers. I think his franchise can weather this storm pretty well, and again, he'll probably make a move, but you know, that's a pretty deep roster. He's still putting out a good lineup, even with 2 number 1 running backs going, not being what they were supposed to be. So the Hams will be active, but I'm pretty impressed at the lineup he's still able to put out without those guys.
I'm really excited to have just beaten him this week. I think that as we, you know, with the next 5 games for the Hams, all being against the South, he's the best team in the conference, and I think it's him. And no offense to our guests, but I think it's him and the Sponge that are playing the best. Have got the weapons coming together. You know, who knows about Aaron Rodgers if he gets going. The Beavers have some weapons, but if you look at the teams in the South in terms of who's going to get hot over the next 5 weeks and put it together and get this done, you know, as you just outlined, the Hams have got the guns to do it, and I would, you know, I think they're not in a bad position at all.
I play the Hams this upcoming week, and I feel fortunate that I have a Drew Brees who's on the road rather than playing in the Dome where he puts up those huge numbers, and David Johnson on a bye. So I feel pretty fortunate.
Let's go Mongols.
Let's go Mongols. Let's see it.
I mean, you want to talk about paradigm shift, or what should be a paradigm shift. And Michael's email kind of, you know, said he was reevaluating things. You know, in the last 2 drafts, he's taking a backup quarterback in the 2nd round of the draft. Sam Bradford last year, Jameis Winston this year. When, you know, he's had solid starters, and you just wonder, you know, there have to been, you know, better options for a contending team than going for a backup quarterback. And last year, say his starter, I think, was Matt Ryan at that time. And maybe he thought Bradford and Philadelphia and Chip Kelly was going to, you know, be a better start than Matt Ryan. But boy, after trading for Brees this year, who does not look to be close to done, to take Jameis Winston, the 2nd round pick, I thought was, you know, it's a move for a future, but a move for the far future for a team whose window is clearly, he's clearly the best team in the Southern Conference. And that struck me the draft as really a curious move.
yeah, that's a great point. I guess maybe it gets overlooked because of that great number 12 overall last year. But you're right. I mean, that is that's not a win now move for sure. You're right.
Cleaning up two things on the Hams. So they're starting running backs this week with David Johnson on a bye. Capri Bibbs, Bilal Powell, and Jimmy Graham.
Come on, Mongols.
I mean, Capri Bibbs had 1 carry last week. You know,
Yeah, that's rough.
Maybe he'll get a little more. Bilal Powell is what, 3rd? I mean, maybe he'll get some carries. I don't know the Jets. Because Forte did. Awesome.
The other thing, forgive me if somebody mentioned this and I missed it, but DeAndre Hopkins, I think, has been a big part of the story for the Hams. Has really had a very down year, many games where he's basically been non-existent.
Well, hopefully the Michael's quote of, and if you guys remember this, the what was it? The overreaction of stocking mediocre running backs.
Yes.
Michael would prefer that he stock those cupboards a little bit more with those mediocre running backs. So,
yeah, Terry, if you lose this week, you're going down to FBS.
Well, you know, with
It was so much easier where you said Division I AA.
With all that Stick said and all that lineup, I'm looking at the, you know, the scoring projection, and I'm still a 6-point dog.
Yeah.
So even with Capri Bibbs and Bilal Powell, so we'll see.
Who's Breeze beating up on this week?
At the 49ers.
All right, let's see if we can squeeze in one more topic tonight. I've been holding this one for a little bit. It's probably time to dive into it a little bit.
Unleash.
The quarterback carousel, the great quarterback trade frenzy of this year's keeper deadline. Let me just rattle some of these off. Andrew Luck goes to the Sponge Fishermen, big, bold trade by the Sponge. Drew Brees, as we've said, went to the Hormel Hams. Not necessarily a 10-year solution there, but stud quarterback for the Hams. Gave up very little, relatively speaking, to get him. Kirk Cousins to the Dirt Devils. The Aliens played some games, ultimately dropping and then reacquiring Ben Roethlisberger. The K-Wheels traded for Carson Palmer, took Derek Carr in the draft, might have their stud quarterback for the future now. Derek Carr had been acquired and dropped by the Giant Killers before that.
Damn it.
The Boba Fatts kept Matthew Stafford over Jameis Winston in a tough decision. Somewhat surprising, I think. Real quick, going through those names.
Don't forget about the Carson Palmer trade, too. That's
the K-Wheels. Oh, yeah, I think I mentioned that they traded for Carson Palmer. Then they drafted Derek Carr. Frankly, I will throw out there with Roethlisberger. Yeah, I dropped him. I reacquired him. A lot of teams had the chance to take him through the first 2 rounds of the draft if they really wanted, and didn't make that bold investment. Looking at all of this, who's made the right moves at the top of the line?
I'll start. I'll just say, if there's any justice in the world, Derek Carr is going to haunt the Giant Killers for a decade. And we're going to remind him each year at keeper time that you had him and decided that you didn't need to protect him. And God, that would be just so great. So anyway, I hope that goes well. I always wanted to draft a quarterback early, even after I traded for Palmer, just knowing he was a little fragile and who knows what his longevity might be. The Breeze trade is outstanding in terms of just the amount it took, as well as the Luck trade, from Chief and Berkman holding his cards as long as he did. But yeah, great to see all the action happen, and yeah, fun. Go David Carr.
Derek.
Sorry, go Derek Carr. I just said David Carr tonight. Go Derek Carr. I had David Carr once upon a time too.
Derek frickin' Carr. Yeah, that could come back to haunt me for years. I don't know. Looking at this, you'd have to. Derek Carr deal and all that looks like the winner, and me dropping him, does not look good. Picking up Ryan helps, and he's been good since I've gotten him. But yeah, you gotta. The short-term winner has to be the Wheels and the Hams.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
I look at this question. Now, go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say I think short-term winner is the Hams. He thought his window was now, and he went and got Drew Brees. He's the number one fantasy scorer so far this year. And then I think long-term, Derek Carr, fantastic. But I think right now I'd say the Sponge Fisherman made the best move for the long term. Andrew Luck after last year, I mean, people still knew who he was, but he wasn't the boy wonder anymore. It was kind of forgotten about. The guy's still going to be great for the next decade. So I think the Sponge got the win in the long term.
I tell you, you would think so, but it seems like the Ryan Grigson, Pagano combination is determined to waste the prime of Luck's career without blocking for him or playing defense. But when I read this question, there's a few different ways you could take it. I kind of took it as, what's the team have this year and what did they have last year? Clearly Eli Manning to Andrew Luck represents a pretty good league. Last year's Matt Ryan to Drew Brees is a huge league, although Matt Ryan of 2016 has been much better than Matt Ryan of the last 2 years. Nick went from Brees to Cousins, but where Nick is standing, that's not a terrible move. I think Kirk Cousins is definitely a keeper quality quarterback with his best years ahead of him. We'll see what Washington can do around him. Aliens, they played it straight. They got their guy back, and with the benefit of being able to keep somebody else. Stick, who were you able to keep? Who was that number 7 keeper for you?
Dante Moncrief.
Dante Moncrief. K-Wheels had to move on from Peyton Manning, obviously. Carson Palmer was a good trade, and Carr, I'm not going to put him in Canton yet, or even in TFFL Canton, which I think is, I don't know, somewhere near Pittsburgh. But, clearly a good draft pick, as it turned out. And even the Giant Killers, remember last year they had a Fitzpatrick, Dalton combination. Even going to Eli Manning was a pretty good improvement on them. Certainly, Ryan Fitzpatrick this year is nowhere near Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. I've always thought of Eli Manning is the number 12 keeper quarterback. He's a guy who by definition is a keeper quarterback if you want to keep one, but you should always be trying to improve on. But I think the stats bear him out as a starter. And I give a lot of credit to the Fats because, listen, Matt Stafford, every instinct was screaming, get rid of this guy. Yeah. I thought he might be maybe the first quarterback taken in the draft, maybe. But he's a guy who's underachieved at times the last few years. But I think losing Calvin Johnson's made him a lot better. Several, I don't want to call them pundits because I think it gives them a level of intelligence they haven't earned. But several, football media guys have put Stafford in their top 3, quarterbacks in the league, this year. He's played really well. And, Fats has been married to Stafford for a while, traded Ryan to hold on to Stafford a couple weeks ago. So, he's even from this year to last year, but Stafford's way out ahead this year than where he's been, at least anecdotally.
Stafford and Crabtree, two somewhat surprising but very good keeper decisions by the Fats.
I'll tell you what, I remember on one of these webcasts saying, and the question about Stafford came up, and it seemed like, to Chief's point, he was ready to move on, and he had the perfect excuse with Calvin retiring of cutting bait and going to Winston, right? And he didn't do it, and credit to Fats on that. It's a great point.
And Stafford at times last year looked a lot like Jay Cutler, to be honest. He did not look good.
Right. And I think Winston, I like Winston a lot, but he's going to be a starter for a long time in the league. But I think he's going to be kind of like an Eli Manning kind of starter for the next 12 years. A guy who can start for you, but you're always looking to get better. If Stafford can play elite for maybe next tier down for 5 or 6 years, it's probably the right move.
Yep.
I just want to rewind a moment and make sure we all understand that TFFL Canton is in Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
Not gonna argue.
All right.
Bill, we need some updates on the TFFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's Thornburg's project, right?
that's Thornburg.
And you know what? I hope Rob Iannuzzi might be our guest next week, so we can actually press him a little bit on this and get some thought behind the madness.
We have a lot of people. Yeah, we need to get Thornburg back on.
Berkman is dying to be on too.
Yep. Berto, we want to get your annual trade forecast next week. So we got a lot.
I'm in Mexico next week. It'll have to be the week after.
All right. Let's start to wrap this week up here. We got a few closing segments. Let's quickly reset the schedule. Looking ahead to Week 9 action. What games are on tap, Chief?
Man, let's go another hour. I'm just hitting my stride now.
Yeah.
Might be the rum, but I'm feeling pretty good. All right, schedule. Well, as I mentioned in the commissioner's report, I have christened the game of the week. And see, I'm stalling because it hasn't popped. There it goes. Okay. The game of the week, I have the K-Wheels at the Boba Fett's. K-Wheels have been featured a lot, it seems, in the hands, but it seems like that is the game this week that's going to go a long way towards sorting out that Northern Conference. Probably the wild card. You know, I think the Fats are probably the third most talented team in a 3-team division. But I think in every other division they'd be first or second. So they're a strong wild card contender, if not division finalists. K-Wheels are the K-Wheels. You know, they had a struggle for a couple of weeks, but it seems like they've righted the ship. Right now, K-Wheels are favored by 20. I don't know if that's because Rob Nelson visited a few guys inactive in there. Yes, AJ Green in there who's on by.
Once he does it, it'll be K-Wheels by 5.
Okay. So, you know, I expect a good game. The Carr versus Stafford, two guys we've talked about in the last, 3 minutes. Carr's got Denver. It's obviously going to be a tough sledding there. Stafford's got Minnesota. So it's going to be a very interesting game. Could be a low-scoring game. Yeah, it's hard to choose right now because I'm not looking at Rob starting the lineup. But I think it's going to be within a 7-point margin. The other games we have this week, we have the Impact trying to get out their schneid against the Aliens. I do not think the Impact's going to win a game this year. I think they've pissed on their best chances, which is probably the Devils. So we'll see. Dirt Devils are at the Senators in a game of it's kind of key to the Southern Conference. Mongols at Hams. We talked about how wounded the Hams are with injuries and bye this week. Terry says they're still underdogs. That's amazing to me. Giant Killers at the Lizards. So that's the Week 9 schedule for TFFL. Outside a lightning round, the K-Wheels Boba Fett's. Who comes out of there with a W?
Boba Fett's, baby. Yeah.
I think my answer is obvious. The K-Wheels are going to prevail.
But Hank just changed my mind. The K-Wheels are going to.
That's right. Let's get the snow co-owner in here to doesn't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah. The problem here is there's a lot of tough matchups, and primarily with the Fats, but the K-Wheels have some tough ones as well. In both cases, Oakland playing against Denver, Detroit against Minnesota. The key here may be who's scoring the Oakland touchdowns. How many do they score, and who's scoring them? If it's Latavius Murray, if it's Michael Crabtree, or if it's Derek Carr throwing to Amari Cooper. That's going to determine the outcome here, I think. Yeah. But I'm going to pick the K-Wheels.
Those two games have very heavy influence on this matchup. It seems like there's a lot of representation from those 4 teams.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to take the K Wheels here. I think Julio Jones is going to be the difference. I don't see any way with AJ Green out that you know, with Julio Jones going against Tampa Bay, I don't see anyone there to offset him for the Fats. But I think it's going to be close.
Lot of points tomorrow. Four Matt Ryan TDs.
That's fine. Throw him to Julio Jones, and I'm happy. Let's do it.
To Mohamed Sanu getting the start for the Sponge, so I'll take that also.
Whoever. Jacob Tammy, whoever you want.
Yeah.
I would take a 2-point conversion.
Let's run it up. Let's have a big score.
Sure.
Get Devontae.
At least it'll be a fun Thursday night game, and I feel like we haven't had one of those for a long time.
Yeah, AJ Green out really hurts the Fats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is it's gonna be tough for the Fats. Uphill climb for sure.
And of course, usually he would fill that hole with Julian Edelman, who was also on bye.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know who's going to get that start there. I guess Jeremy Maclin maybe. Cole Beasley would be the other option.
Well, he doesn't have Gurley in right now, so Gurley will be in.
Yeah, we got tough games coming up here. We do. These are all gonna be close.
Right? So Gurley's gonna be in and AJ Green out, right? And that's it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that's a +7.
And a kicker. He's going to have to go get a kicker.
And the
That's a
kicker.
+16, and that gets into 51, 55.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot closer. My game at the Ampac, I've got to go get a kicker. At the moment, they're actually favored, but that'll be a 50-50 game. We'll see. I mean, every game down the stretch here is going to, I hope, help sort this out a little bit, start determining some tiebreakers. We'll hopefully get a clearer picture as we go here, but it's a big mess right now.
I tell you, I think those 5 lost teams, this is pretty much, I know for me, this is do or die because
Well,
I have one game I can probably afford to lose, and I get heavy buys hitting me week 10. So at this point, you know, I think I'm playing the Beavers, I want to say. I should know this. It is the Beavers. I consider it do or die for me. I think I'm definitely maybe a seller should I lose this game.
I mean, the Senators Devils is another big game in the SoCo. Kramer at 3-5, possibly facing, you know, for lack of a better term, an elimination game, and he has to do it without Tom Brady. So, you know, buys rearing their ugly head for some teams at the worst time.
yeah, again, these head-to-head games, if the Devils beat the Senators, if the Beavers beat the Sponge, yeah, that could set both of those teams out. But if you flip the script, if the Sponge beat the Beavers, if the Senators beat the Devils, yeah, things are going to get a lot messier, actually.
Fun hobby we have, isn't it?
Let's see it. Let's go. Chaos. Let's have it.
Okay, let's start to wrap up. Let me give you your trivia answers. We're looking back to the 2003 TFFL draft in Salem, Massachusetts.
Am I thinking the right draft?
No, you're not.
Did I give this away before? I didn't mean to.
Let me tell you what we're looking for. Terry picked Willis McGahee at number 5. Really what we're looking for are the 4 picks before that. But I gave a clue when I asked it the first time, and I'll ask it the same way again. Tell me who was the number 1 overall pick for 1 point. And then there were 3 young running backs who went 2 through 4. Name all of them. Get a point for each one you can name.
Okay, Alfie Reek is all I could find was an orange highlight. Oh, Berto. Berto's got a nice dry erase board.
Okay, let me see Berto. William Green, Donald Brown. Wrong. I think those were 2 different drafts, and neither one is this draft.
All right.
Can you read this at all?
Charles Rogers was the number 1 overall pick in that draft. He was a wide receiver, which I sort of hinted at in the way I asked the question. The Beavers took Charles Rogers number 1. Chris Brown, Dominic Davis, and Lee Suggs, all good guesses, but I don't think that's this draft. Chief, you get 1.
You know, and I gave away Charles Rogers, but I didn't think he was number 1 at the time.
I thought you were talking the wrong draft.
I threw that in there at the end because I couldn't think of anybody better.
So Terry, for the guests, gets Charles Rogers. He guesses Larry Johnson, who I think might have been this draft. Yes, but Larry Johnson was actually in the second round of this draft.
Justin Vargas.
Justin Fargas, I think was there he is, second round of this draft.
And the Wizinator.
And the Wizinator, Ontario Smith, was
That's pretty good, Terry.
That was to me, right?
Ontario Smith went to the K-Wheels at number 4 overall in this draft. So Terry's going to get 2 points for the guests.
Nice work.
Nice.
And I'm going to give him a bonus point for naming 2 players in the second round of that draft.
That's very nice.
All right, that's very.
I know.
Oh, wait a minute.
John went in that draft.
Did I get any second round picks here? I mean, these guys were in that draft.
Lee Suggs did not go anywhere near that early. I don't see his name anywhere.
Chris Brown, Dominic Davis, which I think was Dominic Williams at the time.
Yes.
And I don't think he was drafted. I thought,
You might be right.
yeah.
I see a Mo Williams to the Mongols, of
Mo
course,
Williams. Wow.
in the second round.
The scoring was 0 for Hank, 1 for Chief, 0 for Berto, and
Dare to
3
be
for T-Row.
Mo Williams. Dare to be great.
Hank, you got nothing there?
I got a 0. I thought it was the Cadillac Williams Ronnie Brown draft.
Oh, okay.
And because I figured that Sticks trivia might coincide with our guest who actually had that number 1 pick.
Was William Green in the Cadillac Williams draft?
No.
No.
What was the Cadillac Williams draft?
That was with Ronnie Brown
Yeah.
and
Williams was not in that draft, no.
Cedric Benson.
Okay.
Cedric Benson, that's what I couldn't remember. Yes, good.
In that draft.
Do you know who the number 4 pick in that draft was? So it went Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Cedric Benson,
J.J. Arrington.
J.J. Arrington
Nice.
Wow.
in the Tom Brady trade.
So what's the answer, Stick?
All right. So good, nice job for the guests, Terry.
Stick, what's actually the answer?
Oh, you want the full lineup of picks here. So Charles Rogers, number 1 overall. Lizards at number 2 took Liddell Betts, who was going to be the starting running back for the Redskins.
Liddell Betts, 2 overall. Awesome.
The Aliens at number 3 took a young running back named Tony Hollings.
Okay.
Drafted by Houston with a second-round pick in the NFL's supplemental draft
Georgia Tech.
out of Georgia Tech.
Yep.
And the K-Wheels then took Ontario Smith, number 4, and the Mongols took McGahee at 5. Okay, Chief, rants and reminders to wrap us up.
I do not.
I have a PSA.
Okay.
Is Thornburg on here?
No.
No.
Thank God. He does. Yeah, he'd be not happy.
Vote nasty.
Okay.
I'm a nasty woman.
Nice
You gotta
job.
vote
There
nasty.
we go.
My friend made this. That's all. Goodbye.
Nice.
I think we might have just violated FTC rules.
Oh,
Not allowed to take political.
all the time. Vote for a fucking idiot.
I think you need more than 10 viewers to violate any FTC rule.
Let me just point out on this webcast, there's been 1 F-bomb. It was dropped by Amanda. The FCC is all over her.
And there you go.
All over.
But now, Sick, I think everyone's been paid now, which makes me happy.
Nice.
Good. I've got no rants. I'm gonna be working with draft chairman for life, Berkman, over the next couple weeks, and get some proposals fleshed out for next year's draft. I would like to have it decided by, say, December 1, or at least by Christmas, let's say. Because I think there is some significant cost savings to be had by booking early. So I just wish everybody good luck. Terry, you got to do what you have to do against the Hams this week.
Bring it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Terry, thank you for bringing flowers. Are those real?
Of course not. Of course not. They're plastic.
Nice.
But yeah,
Classic.
nice flowers.
It's a nice touch, Terry.
Domesticated Rogers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Have you, may I
These things
ask,
happen.
have you sold your house?
It is under contract as we speak, but it's not officially sold.
All right. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck to everybody in the TFFL.
Especially the Lizards.
Boo, Lizards.
Who plays?
Week 9 action ahead.
No alien.
Everybody's rooting against everybody else. Again, we got a lot of head-to-head action going. We'll see if the AMPAC can play spoiler. 2.5 weeks until the trade deadline. Lots going to happen. We'll be back here talking about what just happened in Week 9, looking ahead to Week 10, a week from tonight. Best of luck to everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Sick.
Cheers, everyone.